Good day and welcome to the BMC IMS Webinar Series, a fireside chat about the IMS Catalog webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Andy Andrews. Please go ahead, sir.
Hello, it's the latest episode of our webinar series. Today we'll be talking about managed ACBs. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Robert Blackhall from BMC. Is one of the architects working in the catalog space. So, Robert?
Thank you, Andy. It's really good to be here today in this April edition of the BMC INR series, and we are going to talk about the IMS Catalog and IMS Managed ACBs today. We're really so we can announce we have a special guest today to join us, and his name is Deepak Kohli from IBM Education Department. And Deepak, are you with us?
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning.
I'm not from the Education Department. I'm from the IMS Development Lab, but that's okay. It's a good start.
That's why we're chatting, because I'm learning about things as everyone is. So I think many people have heard before, maybe taken some classes with you.
Yeah.
So I could Deepak, is that right? That's correct? I've heard it many different ways. So.
No. People have butchered my name many times, so that's okay.
Well, I was going to say reputation. That didn't sound too, but it's a good reputation for being knowledgeable on a number of subjects. And when you give your presentations, you talk about I'm going to introduce a little bit about your background, because that for people that may not have heard of you before, that'll give a connection. But I think you've lived in many different continents in your life, haven't you?
Yeah. I was born in India, raised in Africa, grew up in New York after that, and I'm living in Los Angeles. So yeah, getting away from the FBI. No, just kidding.
Yeah, well, I get it. Yeah, well, that's pretty good. You still have a couple more continents to go, I know, but
yeah.
So you're lucky when you were young. You took some computer classes, and that and some other things led you to being a trainer or an educator. Or what did you call yourself? Between trainer and educator, presenter.
I guess so. I mean, I've been doing the conference circuits, and I've been presenting and teaching IMS classes for quite some time. And yeah, I started in IMS in 1979, and the joke that I always make is I've known IMS longer than I've known my wife. So, but I've been around.
Did you release the IMS? That was Deepak. What release was it?
Yeah, it was around IMS. I think it was 1.1.2 maybe. This was before DASD logging. We didn't have DASD logging back then. But yeah, that's when I started with the IMS. It's funny, I thought I'd only be doing this for a few years, and here we are. It's been decades, and it's become a career. So.
But you were doing it for a few years, right? Just a few years, right?
Yeah. And IMS is going to be 50 years old this year.
50. Wow. So over that time, I would guess you've seen a few changes in IMS here and there. You talked about tape logging versus what we have now, and so forth. Yeah.
Yep. Many changes. Data sharing came in. N-way data sharing came in. Shared queues came in. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is, as the old ad would say, this is not your grandfather's IMS anymore.
So that brings us to some of the later changes, and particularly, we're here today to talk about the IMS Catalog and IMS Managed ACBs. Now, the IMS Catalog came about in a fairly recent release of IMS, right? Or was it?
Right. The IMS Catalog was introduced in version 12, and Managed ACBs was introduced in version 14. Yeah.
And adopted by all. Is that right?
The adoption has been, I wouldn't say all, but certainly we've seen, more and more customers begin to adopt it. And now, of course, with the statement of direction that IMS Managed ACBs will be required, I think we are seeing many, many more customers seriously taking a look at this.
slides you want to show us today. I just wanted to set it up to see why it is we're talking about the catalog and why we brought you in to talk about something we know you're passionate about because we've heard you talk about it. So without any more, I'm going to let you talk about some of your slides, but I may ask you some questions as we go. And
absolutely, Robert.
Questions, there's a Q&A link on the web, and you can certainly submit your questions. And I have someone sitting here that can the information, and we can ask Deepak questions as we go, or we can hold them to the end. But either way, just put your questions in, and I'll interrupt you as I get those questions. Deepak, you're in charge. Let's go ahead and see what you have to show us today.
Okay, let me run through this. It's a fairly small deck. Gives you a very, very high-level overview of IMS managed ACBs. And at any time, Robert, if you get questions, please just interrupt me and let's address the questions. So let me get started. On the next page, this is the title page, says the what and why of IMS managed ACBs. That's my name, Deepak Kohli. I'm part of the IMS offering management team at the lab. There's my email ID, Deepak K. There's 2 Ks in there at us.ibm.com. Please feel free to email me. Just keep in mind I'm on the road a lot, and so if you hear back from me in a couple of days, feel free to pester me and say, hey, what are you doing? How's an email? All right. So that said, let's jump into IMS managed ACBs. Come on over to the next page. What I've done here, I've taken a portion of a statement of direction that we announced as part of our announcement letter, and I've put in bold some of the key things or the important things that every customer should know. You'll see the third bullet says, IBM intends to require IMS management of ACBs in the future. And it says in the next bullet, at a later date, after the requirement of IMS managed ACBs is in place, IBM also intends to remove the generation process for PSB Lib, DVD Lib, and ACB Lib. At that time, the IMS Catalog, SQL, and DDL become the interface for the IMS database management. So IBM is clearly stating to all of its IMS customers that at some point in the future, we will announce that IMS managed ACBs is required. In order to bring up your IMS system, you got to implement IMS managed ACBs. Once they see that most customers have implemented IMS managed ACBs, everybody's happy, stable, they will make the announcement that says PSB gens, DBD gens, ACB gens are all gone now. Now, if you want to make those kinds of changes, you have to introduce DDL. Just like you do with DB2, you would do DL would be the interface for you to make PSB changes or DBD changes. I think this is a big requirement. This is a major change in IMS. In my opinion, the last time we made such a major change was in IMS 1.3, where we introduced DAS delogging and also said DBRC is now required to keep track of, at a minimum, the logs. It was a major change back then. I think that was back in 1983. People had to change how they did their emergency restart procedures and everything. It was a major change, and I think this is the same case here. So I think all of my customers start playing with this stuff, start using it, start looking at it now before that date comes down the pike. That coming on the next page, legal requires this. Basically, it says IBM can change their mind. So here it is, and I'm going to skip over this, move on to the next page. Just IBM that's sort of getting around, impose this. The entire vendor community is coalescing on this. Of course, IBM tools have been updated to support IMS managed ACBs. I've listed some tools from BMC. I was speaking to a person from CompuWare, and he said, hey, FileAid supports IMS managed ACBs. So the entire vendor community is coalescing around this change that's inevitable in IMS. And so this is another reason I think customers should take a serious look at this. So that now, yeah.
Deepak, this is Robert. Yes, and I think it's important to point out as business partners, we are working together to bring these solutions and to make sure our products support what IBM is releasing. So that's an opportunity to work with you, and we have been to make stuff ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Go ahead.
Our last webinar, that we have in March had to do with the IMS the catalog manager for IMS from BMC.
Yeah. You know, that's an important point. I mean, here we are. We have an IBM person on a BMC webinar talking about this, and that just goes to show how everybody's sort of working together on this. And by the way, I was working with another customer who's implementing IMS managed ACBs, and when it came down to using the import command, he says, "No, I don't need to do that." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, we've got Delta Virtual Terminal version 6.9, and it supports IMS managed ACBs, and I can just use the refresh command." I mean, so that's an example where, you know, again, the community is coalescing around this, and everybody's gearing up to support IMS managed ACBs. Yeah. Okay, that said, here's my quick agenda. I'll give you an overview of what the IMS catalog is, what is managed ACBs. I'll talk about the key data sets. These are new data sets in an IMS managed ACB environment. I'll talk about how these data sets are created and updated. And then just to sort of whet your appetite, give you an overview of DL. And then finally, what is it you have to implement? What is it you do not have to implement when you're implementing IMS managed ACBs? And then lastly, the question that people always ask me is why? Why are we doing this? Why are we making IMS managed ACBs required? And what's the value of this? And that's what I want to talk about at the end there. Okay, with that said, on to the next page. So the catalog was introduced back in version 12. It's a HAL-DB database. Contains IMS metadata, which is a fancy term for data about the data. So it, you know, describes your databases, what segments you've got, what fields you've got, what data types of those fields are. It was primarily introduced so that the IMS universal drivers that provide JDBC access to IMS data can take advantage of this metadata and allow you to do JDBC access to IMS data. Over the years, we found that this has become a useful integration for tools that provide JDBC access. It can be used for data modeling, and there are many other benefits for the IMS catalog. The important thing that I want you all to walk away with is that IMS catalog is required if you implement IMS managed ACBs. So keep that in the back of your mind there. On this page, just a quick, there is a difference between the IMS catalog and the IMS repository, both introduced in version 12. The catalog contains metadata about your databases. The repository, on the other hand, contains what goes into your IMS sysgen, your modblocksgen information. That stuff is recorded in the repository and not in the catalog. Okay, that said, come on over to the next page. So when we implement IMS managed ACBs, it says that IMS will no longer load ACB blocks from the ACB library. It will no longer use the ACB lib or ACB lib A or ACB lib B. The ACB blocks will now reside in a new set of data sets called the directory data sets. And IMS will load ACB blocks from the directory data set and not the ACB lib. One key differences between ACB lib and the directory data set is that the directory data set is a PDSE as opposed to just a PDS. And the directory data set contains those ACB blocks that used to reside in ACB libraries. You can think of the directory data set as the runtime equivalent of the catalog. That's another way to look at it. Also, the ACB library never contained information about GSAM, or it never contained information about logical DVDs. That information was always in the DVD lib. Well, all that stuff will now reside in the directory data set. So we want to get rid of the ACB lib, the DVD lib, and PSB lib eventually, and that's why we've introduced this directory data set.
Pretty important data set, Deepak. It sounds like the directory is a pretty important data set.
Yes, absolutely.
It has to be managed kind of a way that the VLab is a critical IMS data set, and then that'll be one of those critical data sets. And as part of, and this is why I'm glad you brought that up, Robert. This is why we have the title IMS Managed ACBs. The reason we call it IMS Managed ACBs is
is that if a directory data set fills up, IMS will automatically allocate a second directory data set. If that fills up, we'll automatically allocate a third directory data set, and that's why we call it an IMS managed ACBs. We manage these directory data sets. In fact, when you create the directory data set, if it isn't created, we'll create it for you. And the directory and the catalog are sort of kept in sync. And I'll talk more about this as we go through the stack. As said, is written here on the next page. So what is IMS Managed ACBs? With IMS Managed ACBs implemented, IMS will no longer use the ACB library. IMS will load the ACB blocks from the directory. You think of the directory as the ACB library equivalent of the catalog. Builds and manages these directory data sets. You can use DDL. One implemented IMS managed ACBs. You can use DDL for your database and PSP changes. This is optional today. At some point, as I mentioned in the statement of direction, at some point in the future, IBM will require that you use DDL once IMS managed ACBs is implemented. The directory data sets listed here at the top, you'll see the catalog data sets. You've got the partitions of the catalog database, and then we have one secondary index, and it's also partitioned. And then you've got the directory data sets. You can have two or more of these directory data sets, and as I said, if one fills up, we automatically create the next one. We also have a staging directory data set, kind of like a staging ACB library. So if you make a change to a DVD or a PSB, that goes into the staging directory data set, and then you import that into the active directory data sets for IMS to use. And so we manage the directory data sets. If one fills up, we'll create the next one. To keep track of these directory data sets, we also have a bootstrap data set, very much like D2 has a bootstrap data set. All our bootstrap data sets keep track of the directory data sets and not the log data sets. So the next, the way you create the directory, and if you want, you can also have the catalog created is by using this utility that we provide called the catalog populate utility, DFS3PU00. It takes as input your ACB libraries, your DVD and PSB libs, and then there are some sysint control cards, and it'll go ahead and create the catalog and the directory data sets for you. If one of those customers has already created the catalog and playing with this, and you just now want to create the directory data set, that's fine too. It'll do that for you. It'll just create the directory data sets. So you have two options. You can either create both the catalog and the directory data sets with the run of the catalog populate utility, or you can just create the directory data sets alone if you already have the catalog. Have this created, how to make changes, and that's what the next slide is talking about, is how is the directory data set updated? And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next couple of pages here. So for the next page, one option, and I think this is what most customers would do, and we certainly recommend you do that. Once you've implemented IMS managed ACBs, you can continue to do your ACB gens into the ACB library. You can continue to maintain them. But do one more step. You need to get that information into the directory. And the way you would do that is you can run either the DFS3 UACB utility that we provide, or you can run the catalog populate utility. And in both of them, you would specify managed ACBs equals stage. And when you run these utilities, what they would do is they would copy that information from the ACB library they'll update catalog, and then they'll copy the ACB blocks into the staging directory. Whenever you're ready, you can use the import command, which is a type 2 command. It's called the import definition, and it imports your ACB blocks from the staging directory into the active directory, and now that's available to IMS. So that's the additional step that you'd have to do. But you can continue to use ACB libraries. And I suspect most customers will do this for a number of reasons. They've got home processes, and it take a while for them to change some of those processes. or some of their vendor tools may not be up to date. So I suspect most customers would do this. And then, yeah.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Please,
we have a
go ahead.
question. Someone is pointing out that this sounds a lot like DB2. You know, DB2's had a catalog for some time. Do you think, is that where IBM got the idea, or do you think that IMS is moving to be more like DB2 and merging together maybe, or what do you do?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and whoever asked that, thank you for asking it. I was going to get to that towards the end. So there are a couple of things. Number one, we visit customer sites. You know, when I started out in 1979 and in the 80s, you would go to a customer site and they would say, this guy here is the DBA for IMS, and this guy here is DBA for DB2, when DB2 was introduced, by the way. Now you don't see that. Now whenever we go to a customer site, we go, meet Dave. And Dave is now, he used to be the DB2 DA, he's now the IMS DBA also. And Dave goes, yeah, I support it, but you know, I really don't understand this DB gen and the PSP gen. So we're finding, and this is a term we've come up with, we're finding that now we've come into the world of the universal DBA, right? And so to resolve that skills issue, we are introducing the DL so that the same DBA that used DB2 or supported DB2 can now support IMS. So one reason for us doing this is to address the skills issue. There's another reason, and the reason is this. When we talk to customers, we always find customers will say, you know what, that's IMS in the corner there. It runs, it's fantastic, it never crashes, the speed is really remarkable, we love it, but not putting any new applications on IMS. And we say, why? Why are you not doing that? And they say, well, you know, IMS is old technology. And we're always baffled about that because we don't think IMS is old technology. We've introduced SOA capability, we've introduced IMS Java capability, and now you've got REST/JSON access to IMS resources using ZOS Connect. And so we're always wondering, why do they consider IMS to be old technology? And you can do JDBC access to IMS, and so why do you think it's old technology? And so we started asking our customers these questions. And one of them said, okay, Deepak, let me tell you this. Who does gens nowadays? This is really the only product that does this. Nobody does gens. And so if you'll notice, every new version of IMS that we've come out with, we've always said, oh, that macro in the sysgen, we got rid of it. Our goal is, there'll come a day, and that's our goal, that one day you will not be doing sysgens. Managed ACBs is our way of saying, for the DBA out there, no DBD gens, no more PSP gens, no more ACB gens. Let's get rid of that stuff. It's a proprietary way of doing things, and let's get beyond that. And then a third reason, we're in the digital age where, you know, we're talking about cloud and cloud technology, and if you want to provision an IMS database, if you want to provision an IMS system, you can't do that if somebody's got to go run a DBD gen and an ACB gen. And so the possibilities are open to us, you know, if we start getting rid of these proprietary approaches of doing things in IMS. So the answer to that question, Robert, it's really three things. One, to address the skills issue, and number two, we want to get rid of this proprietary approaches of doing things in IMS, and number three, we'd like to play in the digital age. Like to open up IMS that tomorrow, if you wanted to, you know, provision an IMS database on the fly, you can do that. When I talk about DDL, I'll tell you that, you know, today we have the capability, if you want to create a brand new DEDB database, you can submit DDL, hit enter, boom, and you're done. And the database is allocated, and the data set is defined, it's primed, it's ready to go. You don't have to go have somebody else go allocate the data set, do a dynamic allocation macro, none of that stuff. You submit the DDL, you hit enter, and boom, you're done. The database is now available for use. And that's where we're leading IMS to play in that technology, if you will. Did I answer that question?
See, Deepak, that sounds very exciting because that means IMS is not just an old 50-year-old piece of software. It means it's something new happen. It's relevant and
exactly. It's staying relevant, and you continue to get the speed, the reliability, the availability that IMS was built on. Yet at the same time, some of these tasks that we've been doing for decades, like DVD gens, PSV gens, ACB gens, we simply modernize them so that IMS can take advantage and play in this new digital age. Yeah.
So it's a balancing act because you're adding new features, and it's migrating for something that had around a long time, and it's a journey, I guess, as we move to these new constructs. What about batch? I know we talked a lot about online, but I know not everything works quite yet in batch for the IMS managed ACBs, does it?
It does. So you've got the choice of changing your batch JCL to use the directory or the directory in the catalog, or if you don't want to change the JCL for the hundreds of batch jobs that you've got, which is a reality for most customers, we provide an exit routine that you can code up. So and certainly, it's a phased approach. You can make sure that IMS managed ACBs works well for your online system, and then you can address starting your batch environments. But no, yes, the answer is no. Yes, look at me talk. The answer is yeah. You can have your batch jobs also take advantage of IMS managed ACBs. Yeah. Did I answer that?
You answered all my questions.
So let me just continue.
As time goes on, but go ahead and continue.
Okay. So on the next page, option 2 for updating the directory is using DDL. You can submit DDL directly, and it'll update the catalog, and it'll put the stuff into the staging directory, and then you can use the type 2 command to import that into the directory. DDL can be submitted either through IMS Explorer for development, or we also provide a batch utility for you to do that. And so this is the other approach. I suspect eventually what folks will do is most customers will start off with option 1, which is they'll continue to do ACB gens and then do that extra step to get that stuff into the staging directory and then import that. And then they'll do a phased cutover where they'll start using DDL. And I think that so combined approach is what I think most customers will do. Let me give you just whet your appetite on DDL. So is a language that SQL. It's just part of SQL. DB2 uses it to define your databases, your application resources. And now with IMS, you can also use DDL, provided you've got implemented what? IMS managed ACBs. That's the requirement. So when IMS managed ACBs is implemented, you can use DDL to create, modify, delete IMS databases, IMS database resources, and application resources. You don't have to do a DVD gen, PG gen, ACB gens. No online change process is required. The commands can be submitted from a Java client using the universal drivers or through tools that support the universal drivers. And here at the bottom, I've sort of, for those of you who've never used DDL, I've sort of listed the commands, DDL commands. So if you want to create a database, you'd use a create database command. If you want to create segments in that database, use a create table command. If you want to create the data set statement for a database, you'd use a create table space command. So again, we're trying to make it easier for that universal DBA who supports both relational databases as well as the hierarchical IMS databases. And of course, in order to implement DDL, here it is at the bottom again, the catalog and directory are required. So to sort of give you a feel for this, let me go on to the next page, page 16. This. On the left-hand side, you've got your typical DBD, right? This is coded using assembler macros. The DBD is called COG DBD, an HDAM, OSAM database, is a randomizer name, the wraps, and so on. So if you had to create this database using DDL, on the lower right-hand side, there's the DDL. It says create database log DBD. And then we've added to the DDL parameters that you wouldn't see with DB2, but parameters that you do need with IMS. Access, HDAM, OSAM, RM name, those are your randomizing parameters. And semicolon, and that's it. You submit that and it creates a database. For the set statement in the DBD, you'd have create table space. For the SAM statement, it will be create tables because each segment corresponds to a table. That's an example. I just wanted to sort of whet your appetite and show you what it means to code DDL. Recently visiting a customer in North America, they're a pharmaceutical company, and it's the same scenario. They had their IMS DBA retire, their DB2 DBA, and they said, you are now going to be the DBA for IMS also, right? And the guy was very nervous about the whole thing. And when I showed him DDL, he was like, oh yeah, this is great. This stuff I can do. This is good. This really helps solve the skill issue, we think. So that's a taste of the DDL.
So I have a question for you before you leave. Go back.
Sure.
So
go ahead.
These DDL statements, where are these entered? Are these entered in this BOC or not these, but the ones that gets on the previous page? Someone wants to know if this is your TSO ISPF.
Very good, great question. Thank you for asking that question. So TSO ISPF offers for DB2. They have something called Spoofy. Right. And you can enter DDL statements through Spoofy. We didn't provide a Spoofy option, and I always get that question from customers. Why didn't you give us a Spoofy option? For IMS. And the answer is simple. We think that to make IMS look and feel that modern approach, TSO ISPF is still that old technology. And these DL statements can, in your development and test environment, be issued using IMS Explorer for Development, which is an Eclipse-based tooling. You can submit DDL from there. For your production environment, that's probably what you want to do is use that batch utility that we provide. Let me quickly go back on this in my page here. Hang on for a second. Almost there.
Sure.
So here's this page here. So I said you can issue DDL through IMS Explorer for Development, and then for your production environment, probably you want to use a batch utility that provide for you to issue DDL. Yeah. Did I address that question? Okay. So implement IMS managed ACBs. What do you need and what you don't need? You certainly have to implement the catalog, as I mentioned. You do need to be able to do type 2 commands like the import command, and so you do need to implement SCI and OM if you haven't implemented that. Your batch jobs, you have a choice. You can use the exit routine, or you can change the JCL, or you can continue to maintain your DVD and PSP lives for your batch jobs until you're ready to do the conversion. BRC is not required for the catalog in a test and development environment, but in a production, I would certainly recommend that you have DBRC available. AC gens, DVD gens, PSP gens do not have to be done once you've implemented IMS managed ACBs. DL is not required today. It's optional, but as the statement of direction said, at some point it will be required. OBM is not required. IMS Connect is not required. So this is sort of the what's required and what's not required to implement IMS managed ACBs.
So I do have a question about that. Now, we haven't really talked about any specific version of IMS. So is this still available in IMS 14, or is it just IMS 15?
This is from IMS 14 onwards. Yeah, it's available for IMS version 14 onwards.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one thing that nobody really asked, and so if nobody asked a question, I'm going to throw out that question. Those who've done migrations for DB2 know that one of the pain points is the catalog. And so what does that mean for IMS now that we've introduced a catalog? Is when we do migrations from one version to the next, is this going to create a problem for IMS folks just like they have a problem in the DB2 area? The answer is we've learned a thing or two from the DB2 catalog experience, and we have been backwards and made every approach, and then we've made sure that our catalog is not version dependent. So if you've implemented the catalog in version 14 and go to version 15, there's a thing you have to do to the catalog. The catalog works in version 15 also. That's another important point that I wanted to mention there. And the last slide is the value of implementing IMS managed ACBs. And again, people ask, why are we doing this? I sort of talked about this before, but I just want to sort of finish up with this. Again, as I mentioned, people say, IMS is that old technology, and we don't think it's old. We've always kept up with the latest technology advancements, and one of the questions or one of the things that customers always bring up with us is that, well, this idea of doing gens is ancient. And so we are moving towards making IMS a genless system. We are slowly chipping away at the IMS sysgen. There will come a point, I'll tell you, all you system programmers out there, there will come a point where you no longer be doing IMS sysgens anymore. And the same thing with IMS managed ACBs. That's our way of saying, let's get out of doing PSP gens and DVD gens. So we'd like to see a world where in IMS you don't do PSP gens, DVD gens, and ACB gens. We think that IMS managed ACBs is an operational improvement. IMS directory data sets are PDSEs. I think we all know what the benefits of PDSEs are. And I mentioned that with DDL, when you submit the DDL, we are going to take it to a place where all you do, if you're creating a brand new database, you submit the DDL, you hit enter, and you're done. That's it. Everything gets taken care of in the background. And that's an operational improvement. And when you have operational improvement, that leads to productivity. We need to resolve the skills issue with IMS managed ACBs. So we are modernizing IMS, breaking that perception that it's antiquated. In the catalog, there's no migration required for the catalog from release to release. That's been a major pain point from DB2, and we made sure that we don't get caught up in that. The other thing, by the way, I should mention, which is not part of this topic, but the entire Z platform is going into continuous delivery mode. So after version 15 of IMS, we don't anticipate other versions of IMS coming down the pike. All new enhancements and functions and features will be released via the service stream as PTS. Okay, I think that was my last slide. Yeah, that's my thank you slide there. So I'll open it up for questions or return it back to you, sure, Robert. Let me know for questions.
Right. I have a few questions I thought I'd bring up, and some of them were a little off topic, so I didn't bring them up while you were talking, but they're not off topic because all IMS friends here. So someone was asking about ODBM and IMS Connect being for DB control only, and I don't are they available for DB control only? Yes. That's were they available for DB control only? And they don't in that environment. Yes. Okay. Someone that wants to know, they have automation and processes that depend on the contents of some of the control blocks today, and they're worried about, well, not worried, but they're concerned how to move forward as you reconfigure these control blocks or move them completely away, like ACB Live. How do customers keep things running as things are moving around? How do they keep their automation running?
A couple of things here. The AB block itself hasn't changed much. The block itself is the ACB block is still the same ACB block as it was before. Yes, the library has changed. It's not ACB Lib anymore. It's now the directory data set. And there are customers that we've talked to that are implementing IMS managed ACBs, and they do have homegrown processes. So I'll give you an example. If somebody's creating a brand new database, the application team simply enters the information about the database or a new PSB, for example. They enter that information in an ISPF panel. The customer has this homegrown product. They enter the information in the ISPF panel that then automatically kicks off an update to the IMS Gen, that automatically kicks off a PSB Gen process. Customers have these things sort of implemented, and that customer now has to go in and change that process where it kicks off the PSB Gen. Instead of the PSB Gen, they may want to do a DDL, or they may want to add that step that I mentioned where after the ACB Gen, they now use DFS3 UACB or the catalog populate utility to put that into the staging directory data set. So yes, there are some changes that customers have to make, and we're working with customers to make it as painless as possible. But there is some investment, there is some changes that are required from a customer perspective. I won't lie, and I agree to that. Yeah.
So as IMS goes through this journey of staying relevant and modern, there are some things that haven't quite made the journey yet, such as the data sets to be extended, or maybe the load libraries able to be PDSCs and so forth. Some of those things are still kind of behind the times. Customers prior to that and let IBM know that they need that modernized. Can you give any idea there?
That's a fantastic question. Whoever asked that, really thank you for asking that question. One of the things that we've introduced is this program called the IMS Gold program, and the reason we're calling it IMS Gold is because this is the 50 years of IMS, and so when we introduced this program, we called it IMS Gold. And as part of this IMS Gold program, one of the things that we're doing is we've changed how we handle RFEs. RFEs are requests for enhancements. It used to be, as a client or a customer, if you submit an RFE, it would go into this big black hole, and you heard back, and you wondered what happened to that request. Now, when you submit an RFE, we evaluate it, and we have to get back to you within the next 60 days and let you know whether we accept that RFE and we're going to do something with it, or we reject it. And then even when we accept it, we only accept it if we can get to that line item and deliver it within 18 to 24 months. So what I'm saying to every customer is that, yes, absolutely, get your RFEs in. Let us know if there are things that you need, and in any area, but certainly for IMS managed ACBs. But as you mentioned, load lib and things like that. Anything that you think is a showstopper for you, get them in now. And RFE is also other customers can vote for them, and if we find multiple customers that are voting for them, we will certainly want to implement that and get that out to our customers. The other thing I want to quickly add here, Robert, I don't want to run out of time. We're now implementing new functions and features in a different way now. With this IMS Gold program, first of all, we won't implement something until we've got multiple sponsor users involved. And when we're working with our sponsor users, we will keep them involved from the beginning to the end of that development cycle. So as we go through the development cycle, we will, give them an update, do a playback, do demos, show them, yeah, we're building this way. Is this good? Do you like this? Do you not like this message? Do you want a different message? Tell us what you want. So you get to sort of partner with the lab in the development of these new functions and features that we're going to be delivering continuously as PTFs. So to answer your question, I think get your request for enhancements in. The RFEs are now being evaluated in a much more better approach. And once the RFE does get on the implementation cycle, you get to work closely with the lab, and I think it's a great way of doing things. Because in the way, as you know, we used to deliver new versions every 2 years. And once a new version came out, this is how the thing functioned, and you either liked it or you didn't. Now you get to actually influence the development of a function, given this.
Yeah, and the good part of Deepak, the good part of that is that Deepak, BMC is also, as a business partner, we're involved with IBM's Gold program as well, so we get to participate as well.
Glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Robert, because one of the things that I should let customers know is that in this continuous delivery approach, coming up with a new function that impacts some vendor tool, the onus is on us to make sure that the vendors get involved very early on in the game, right? So that's another benefit, as you just mentioned, with this IMS Gold program and with this new continuous delivery approach. The vendor community is going to be involved much early on than they used to be in the past. And as you said, absolutely, BMC is part of that Gold program. Yeah.
So a couple more questions I want to get to.
Please.
Hey, Deepak,
go ahead.
Question. Can you advance to the next slide just so we can...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Okay, thanks. That way...
While we're talking about questions, this will be our...
We've had several questions asking if we can get copies of this. You can go to watchbmc.com. Give us a couple of days to get it out there, but we'll be out there as a recorded edition. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so another question. Someone wants to know if they're only running an TM environment without databases, is the catalog and directory available to them?
A great question. Thank you for asking that question. The catalog.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, great question. And for the IMS TM only environment, no, the catalog and the directory is not available, and this is only for IMS systems that have an IMS DB. So for IMS TM, we still have your PSV gens and ACB libraries for now.
Coverage.
So I have another question. If you would please, someone to know how the implementation of the catalog and directory technology affects database recovery scenarios. If it affects it, how does it affect it? If I had to recover databases.
No, the database recovery scenario does not change. All right, you use your regular database tools to do recovery of your databases, so there's no change there.
Okay, I have any more questions here?
BMP.
I do have a question about batch BMP jobs. These would be BMP jobs with the ACB lib, or will they use the catalog?
Directory. Online system uses the directory. BMP runs in an IMS system, and the online system would use the directory.
CBB.
Yeah, what about the utilities or DLI batch? Either one.
CBB is a batch job, either DLI or DBB. Those are batch jobs. There are two different flavors of batch jobs. And as I mentioned before, you can, for a while, continue to maintain your ACB libraries for your batch jobs, but at some point you probably want to convert over. And for that, for your batch jobs, you have two options. You can go in and change all your JCL, or we provide an exit routine that you can use so that your batch jobs can take advantage of the directory data sets.
Scroll through. It's a really small window here.
It is, and we want to make sure we get everybody.
We got issue batch DDL and.
So batch DDL, being able to use it in test environments only in production, because the IMS Explorer for development, it has to be used to issue DDL right now. They want to know if they have to have that in production.
So the question wasn't clear, but let me spell it out. In your development and test environment, You can use IMS Explorer for development to issue DDL. You can issue the batch utility that we provide. Choice. I think in a production environment, I think most people, you schedule things to go into production. I think most people will schedule the batch utility to issue DDL in the production environment. That's my thought. Yeah.
Okay. So what to leave customers with today, they move from the way we do things to the way we're going to do things. What about that? Talk about.
Yeah, that's a great question, Robert. So here's what I'm telling every customer. I'm sort of like on the road and meeting with all the customers and really talking about IMS managed ACBs. Change is coming down the pike. The statement of direction is very clear that IMS managed ACBs will be required. The train has left the station. This is not something that's not going to happen. This is going to happen. So what I'm telling customers is this. Now you've got the time, playing with this stuff. Start using it. Start testing it. If there are any showstoppers for you, please let's get the RFEs in. And I can tell you, being on the inside, working at the lab, I can tell you that management is totally committed to this. They've taken people off of other projects and put them on IMS managed ACBs so that we can implement things that customers would like to see. I'll give you an example. Customers that have asked for security options when issuing DDL. They said, DB2 has security, different types of security. They would like something similar. They'd like, when the batch utility issues DDL, they'd like security at that level too. So we had several requests from customers on different types of security that they would like. Actively developing that. We're actually doing that. And there are several other examples where customers started to play with this, and they said, this is really good, but we'd also like for you to add this on here. And we, okay, great, let's do that. And so I'm really seeing a commitment from the management at the lab to make this as painless as possible for the customers. And by the way, here's a question that I always get asked that nobody asked in this webinar. Why IBM come out with a date? Why this date IMS managed ACBs will be required? Why have they not come out with a date so far? And the answer is we're working with a bunch of sponsor users who are really going to go to production with this stuff. Some of them are going to production this year, both IMS managed ACBs and DDL. And we're on a journey with them, and we want to make sure that they're okay, everything is stable, everybody's happy, there are no issues that come up. And once we've got these customers into production and they're actually playing with this stuff and everything's working fine, everything's stable, then we'll turn around and say, okay, we feel pretty confident about this. I think all the requirements have been resolved, and now we are ready to come up with a date. And so this is time for you all to start playing with this, start testing this, start looking at this, get your requirements in. If there are any showstoppers, now's the time to get them in so that development can take a serious look at this and then provide that for you. And so that's a message I'd like to leave everyone with. And by the way, you'll be able to get this deck, and at the front of this deck is an email ID. If you want us to come on site and do a detailed presentation of this stuff, hold your hand, help you implement this, at no cost, let us know. We'll do that. We understand that this is a big change for our clients. As I said, the last time I think we made such a big change was when we introduced DAS-D logging and we made DBRC required. And those of you who are like me, who are old and who were there in the 1984, 1985, if you remember, once we implemented IMS 113 and we implemented DAS-D logging, there were several issues with emergency restart and stuff. And we want to go
through that pain anymore. And this is why the lab is taking this approach. They're saying, let's work with the sponsor users, let's resolve any issues, any concerns that customers have, and once we've got several customers in production with this stuff, let's make it required for all the customers. So starting with this, if you need our help, please reach out to me, email me. We can do a webinar, we can come on site, we can give you detailed information, we can hold your hand, we can help you implement this. Let's leave everyone with. Other questions, Robert?
Yeah, go. We're going to go ahead and run a little bit long on this, so we're getting a lot of questions in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, so
I did see a question go by, and I don't see it now, but it has to do with being able to point to a different directory in batch jobs. I suppose that's when you have a test scenario. Is there any way you could do that now?
like an old DVD.
Right, if you wanted to swap out, maybe you're doing some test work on a weekend or something. Is there any way to do that with this new architecture?
So you want to have a different directory. Well, certainly for a batch job, you can point to a different directory, but the online systems would simply use that one directory, one set of directories.
Okay. So we talked about this earlier. Someone asked if the IMS catalog and directory will be required to start IMS. It's a database, and I think we talked about this earlier, how it's a critical data set now, like ACB Live. But I will ask you, do you have, if you have a directory defined and active, you must have the catalog and directory active to start IMS. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. IMS managed ACBs, and I'll say it again, and please don't feel bad about asking these questions. Keep the questions coming. Implementing IMS managed ACBs means you have the catalog implemented and you have the directory data sets implemented. They're simply the runtime equivalent of the catalog.
About this question a little bit earlier, but someone is expressing some concerns about first of all, application metadata, but they're worried about space issues in the catalog, and I guess all the control blocks. As we put more and more of these control blocks, how does that affect IMS? As required space increases for these data and control blocks?
Well, the IMS managed ACBs, as far as the directory goes, if the directory fills up, we automatically create a second one. If that one fills up, we automatically create a third one. So I don't see a space issue with the directory data set at all. The catalog, the catalog is a HAL-DB database, so it has multiple partitions, and when you allocate the catalog, you would do this just like any other HAL-DB database. You would leave some percentage of every partition available for growth.
Okay. I know BMC has tools as and able to manage HAL-DB. So.
Yeah, exactly. There are many tools out there for you to be able to manage HAL-DBs. Yeah, and BMC some of them too. Yeah.
Question about what kind of effect will the catalog have on the IMS utilities? Will the utilities be updated to run as hybrids, DB2 and IMS?
Utilities have been updated to work in an IMS managed ACB environment. Absolutely.
Right. And on the BMC side, we're supporting.
Yeah.
We're tolerating and taking advantage of the catalog as well.
We are.
I don't see, from the B side, I don't see any direction to merge our DB2 and IMS utilities into one common library.
Yeah, we're not.
Animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, just some technical clarity. With IMS managed ACBs, you log and need the directory. The directory is the runtime equivalent of the catalog. They're kind of you have to keep them in sync. Now, we've implemented IMS Managed ACBs. You've got the catalog that contains your database metadata, and you've got the that contains your ACB blocks. But doing JDBC access, if you access, the log is not being used per se. It really only needs what? Tree, which contains your ACB blocks. So I wanted to sort of leave there for you to think about. With IMS Managed ACBs, both are required, the catalog as well as the directory data set. And we think of the catalog and the directory as one entity, if you will, logically speaking, right? The catalog contains your database metadata. The directory is really the runtime equivalent, if you will, or the ACB blocks. Just the ACB blocks that IMS needs. So if you're doing JDBC access and there's a problem with the catalog, implemented IMS Managed ACBs, will IMS still continue to run? Absolutely, because this only needs the directory data set. The catalog is really required for use if you're doing JDBC access. So if you're not doing JDBC access, and there's an issue with the catalog, let's say there's an IO error on the database, right? And will IMS continue to run? Yeah, it will. Yeah, I wanted to throw that out. And again, this is, we shouldn't have done that. It's technical, this webinar that we're doing, but I wanted to.
We'll keep it technical, so.
I think we appreciate all this information because these are things that we have to all try and think about ahead of time. We certainly don't want to have to figure it out in the middle of a crisis. So
let's hit this one here.
Someone's asking about data conversion that happens during a DBD change. This is sort of a DBD change that they're implementing, and they want if it's following a normal process, or is there anything that's improved from how we do it today?
Getting to versioning.
I think it is, but I'll let Deepak answer.
So the question is, what change are they making?
Well, no, the question is, let me read it to you. How will the data conversion happen during a DBD change? Will it follow the normal process, or will there be any improvements?
The change, it should follow the normal process.
Yeah.
Change to an existing database, there's, whatever change you're doing, it should follow the normal process. It's a very general question, but the answer is it's the normal process. There's no change really specifically.
So I would may answer this one myself. There's a question if there's a tool to make sure the catalog and directory are in sync, and I know that we're looking at BMC, but hoping to be able to offer. We can about that. We have tools that do check the integrity of the data sets and make sure that things the way it should be. And we're requirements on that as well. So we're always open to suggestions from customers on that.
Absolutely. So there are tools, both IBM has tools, and as you heard from Robert, BMC has tools to check on the catalog and the directory, but yeah, absolutely. And also, the utilities that we've got, aside from the tools, the utility that like the DFS3 UACB, the new ACB Gen utility, will update both the catalog and the directory. So, yeah, the answer. There are tools, and the utilities will also do updates to both.
That just came in. If the catalog and directory are in logical construct, how are they kept in sync? Question mark. How does the backout work if a problem happens during the update of the catalog and directory?
Well, I'm saying the utilities that we provide do updates to both. The catalog and the ACB and the directory. So, for example, let's take a look at DFS3 UACB. DFS3 UACB will update both the catalog, and it'll go ahead and update the directory. If for any reason it goes ahead and updates the catalog but doesn't update the directory, and you want to back out the stuff from the catalog, there's also a catalog purge utility that we provide that will allow you to go in and do cleanup of what's in the catalog.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, one thing while I'm scrolling down here, got a couple of more questions that have come in.
That's one.
So DDL for partitioning, and I don't know if it's relative to our PDF or HalDB, but then the follow-on was talking about ranges, or high key ranges. And that's for, could you qualify that? Yeah, tell, like PDF or HalDB. One other thing, just to, I'll keep the Q&A session open just a little bit longer. If you do have any ideas for a few topics, go ahead and add them to the Q&A window, and we'll go ahead and add those. We'll take a look after this is over.
I really appreciate the opportunity today to be able to chat with you and to look at the catalog and the directory and some of the things that are going on, to take the questions and take them real time. This has been a wonderful opportunity, and I hope we can do some of these kind of things again in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you, BMC, for partnering up, and I think this is good. And we are available anytime you need to do this again. Absolutely, and thank you to the client base out there for dialing in, listening to this, and getting your questions. And please advantage of my email ID and feel free to email me and with questions, or like I said, anything you want us to help you with in IMS Managed ACBs, reach out to me, please. And this is our job. I'm utilizing this, and that's my job to get this out there and get customers to speed.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this to Andy now to wrap up. Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Deepak, and for everybody who joined in on it and all the questions. I think we got most of the questions answered. They were coming hot and heavy for a while, so if we'll go back through, and if we missed any, we'll get back to you offline. I just want to leave a plug in for our next webinar, which will be on May 2nd. Same time. This one will be feature log analyzer product and going into some diagnostic techniques. You know, that is getting out of a war room call or a SWAT call quicker. That's the whole context behind this one. So with that, and also there have been numerous requests for you know, this recording, or can you get the presentation? I need to figure out if we can send the presentation out. We'll get to that in a little bit, but in the meantime, you will be able to see the recording of this at watch.bmc.com. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page, mainframe section, you'll see all the recordings in there. That should be posted sometime this week. It's a day or two to get it out there. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrab it up for the day. And again, thank you very much, and we'll resume in 1 month. So Abby, back to you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this concludes today's presentation, and we thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.